Let me know. Hi, thank you for joining Realm of Caring. Today we're going to be talking about reboot, renew, and restart. And what exactly does that mean? It's evaluating your cannabinoid therapy, figuring out if the dosing that you're using is working for you, if you need to tweak a couple of things, if you need to take a break, or if you need to change a different product. And that's what we'll be discussing. If you need additional individualized support, I suggest contacting the care team. You can always give us a call at 719-347-5400, option 1, or you can email us at info@theroc.us if you suspect that you need to reboot, renew, and restart. So starting off, Realm of Caring Foundation specifically invokes the First Amendment rights of freedom of speech and of the press without prejudice. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The products discussed are not intended to diagnose, cure, prevent, or treat any disease. Realm of Caring always recommends when and wherever possible that licensed local healthcare professionals be consulted. The Realm of Caring Foundation is an independent nonprofit with its own governing board. We do not produce, sell, or distribute cannabinoid products, nor do we receive the funds from the sales of other companies' products. So getting started, what exactly are going to be covering today? We're going to be talking about Realm of Caring, just briefly who we are, what we do, our research and resources, cannabinoids, CBD and THC, CBD from hemp versus CBD from marijuana, the endocannabinoid system, rethinking your cannabinoid therapy plan, giving you tools and strategies to re-engage and also re-engage with the care team if you've been underutilizing us and you've been trying to figure all this out on your own. We're more than happy to help you. You can also learn how to manage your results and how to set expectations. We're going to be talking a little bit more about tolerance. We do get a lot of questions about tolerance and how to reboot, how to start again, how to increase or decrease your dosing. Talking about quality products and the products that we support and how to change brands if you're currently not using a product and like to try a company that does have a little bit more transparency or a little bit more support, like the care team or the dosing calculators and tools that we provide for you as well. How to talk to your healthcare practitioner or healthcare provider and how to start that conversation. And of course, donating and volunteering with the Realm of Caring. So reboot, just a quick explanation about what that means. Reboot is a verb. It means to shut down and restart, like a computer or a program. So to start up again after closing or shutting down. And sometimes it's necessary to do a reboot. Even if you've been using CBD for a really long time, this might be an opportunity for you to see if you're still seeing improvements at the current dosing, even if you decreased your dose. We do realize that the following information might be frustrating or maybe a little bit overwhelming, but just know that we are here for you. You can always speak to a care specialist one-on-one. You can visit us in person by coming to our office here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, or calling us or emailing us with the information provided. Realm of Caring. Our motto is because quality of life matters. The Realm of Caring is an independent 501c3 nonprofit that is reimagining the way we think, talk, and respond to cannabis and those who use it. Collaborating on innovative research, we provide revolutionary education, and we empower people to lead better lives. Our name is an acronym. REALM stands for Research, Education, Advocacy, Improving Lives Through Measurable Results. Our mission, the Realm of Caring Foundation improves quality of life through cannabinoid research, educational services, and community connections. Our vision, worldwide knowledge through science, acceptance through knowledge, and access through acceptance. You guys hear me okay? Awesome, fantastic. So before we get started and dive a little bit more in detail in this presentation, let's start off with talking about what is cannabis. Cannabis has over 400 chemical compounds that have been identified and probably growing even more as we learn through research. There are currently 65 plus of these compounds are specific to the cannabis plant. They're known as cannabinoids or phytocannabinoids. For example, they are delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol, which is THC, tetrahydrocannabivarin, which is THCV, cannabidiol, which is CBD, and I'm sure you've heard of that before, cannabichromene, CBC, and cannabidiol, CBG, just to name a few. And most of those compounds have products behind them, so you can find those in medical marijuana dispensaries, depending on where you get them from and what state you live in. So you do have access to these compounds in varying places where depending on where you live and what access you have. But just know that a lot of these compounds have a lot of therapeutic benefit. As you can see in different stages through raw, heated, and aged forms, cannabinoids can start to convert to other compounds. For example, just a brief overview, CBGA in the raw form in the cannabis plant, that means you just cut that plant down, and right in its natural state, if you were to juice it or eat the leaves or the stem or the flower, you'll be ingesting some of these raw cannabinoids like THCA, CBDA, and CBCA. But if you were to heat those cannabinoids through decarboxylation, for example, which is just oxidation of the compound itself, that THCA can turn into THC. And that THC is what is known to get you high or inebriated. So it does have a high effect. But THC and CBD and CBC, CBG, all of these compounds, they have their own medicinal benefits. And using all of these compounds together is what produces the entourage effect. And we'll be talking about the entourage effect in a little while. But I want you to know that by using whole plant extracts, all of these compounds are meant to work together. So instead of using, let's say, just CBD, like an isolate, you're only using one out of the hundreds of compounds that are meant to work together. You can find this chart in your client resources if you want to print this off or research this a little bit further, but this is available to you as a client. All you have to do is just log into your account and you'll find it under resources. What is CBD and what is THC? Really picking out of all those compounds, two main compounds that we talk about the most and that most people are using is CBD and THC. Structurally, they do look very similar, but they are very different. CBD is a major phytocannabinoid from the cannabis plant, which is non-addictive, and research has shown that it has more than 52 mechanisms of action. And you'll see that on that previous slide that you can find in your client resources and all the things that CBD can be helpful for. You can also go on our research library and further look at all the medical conditions that CBD and cannabis can be helpful for as well. THC is also a phytocannabinoid. It's uniquely found in the cannabis plant. THC works by binding to cannabinoid receptors concentrated in the brain and the central nervous system to produce the psychoactive effects. Just a quick note, especially if you're a new user and you are using whole plant extracts, or let's say you are using THC, CBD does help to reduce the psychoactivity of THC. So if you're not a fan of being high or inebriated, consider maybe just taking CBD at night or combining CBD and THC together. So if you're using whole plant, you are using trace amounts of THC, just FYI. Maybe not enough to get you high, but you still are ingesting them. But the trick of the trade is maybe just taking those compounds together, and you can still receive the medicinal benefits without being high or inebriated. So kind of playing on that, what's really the difference between hemp-derived CBD and cannabis-derived CBD? So biologically, chemically, they are the same. So the only difference is just how much THC is allotted in the plant per FDA guidelines. So anything that's over 0.3% THC is going to be considered medical marijuana or medical cannabis, and anything that's under 0.3% THC will then be classified as hemp. So a lot of the products that we support, Charlotte's Web, Elixinol, Mary's Nutritionals, for example, they have both hemp-derived CBD and cannabis-derived CBD products. They both have medical marijuana lines and CBD lines. So you kind of want to differentiate the two and what exactly you're looking for. It is possible still to produce a positive drug test when using whole plant extracts. As I mentioned, you are ingesting trace amounts of THC. Because the trace amounts of THC consumed is being stored in the fatty tissue in your body. So even if you're not feeling it, it's still being stored in your system. Hemp can be purchased and used in all 50 states and even some countries like Canada and the EU. But I want to let you know that there are state-specific CBD laws. There's a great website called procon.org. You can go there and see if your state has CBD laws. You might have to register with your state in order to get a license to use CBD. but just know that all these products can be shipped directly to your home or picked up from a local health food store as well. Access to medical or recreational cannabis, however, does require you to register with your state. Your state does need to have an established medical marijuana program, as well as licensed dispensaries or caregivers to legally dispense cannabis to you. The entourage effect. So how do these compounds work together? Essentially, all those 400 plus compounds are producing synergy, and that's exactly what the entourage effect means. The combined action magnifies the therapeutic benefits of the plant's individual components. So instead of using just one compound that may have a multitude of medicinal benefits, you want to use all of those compounds that are meant to provide medical or medicinal benefits as well, like anti-inflammatory properties, maybe antiemetic, analgesic, which is anti-pain, maybe anti-tumoral. So all those compounds have those opportunities on their own, but it's best to use them all together. So in comparison to, let's say, a CBD isolate, which is 0% THC, you're only using, like I said, one out of hundreds of compounds that are meant to produce homeostasis in the body. Now, I'm not saying that using a CBD isolate is necessarily wrong or anything like that. If you work for the government, or let's say you can't test positive for THC, then maybe consider using a CBD isolate, being mindful that an isolate still may have like 0.0000025% THC, so maybe less than 1% or 0.1%, but you're still ingesting some trace amounts. Another way you can also use isolates is if you're not wanting to alter the THC that you're ingesting in your dose. Let's say you are using a whole plant extraction and you just want to maybe bump up your CBD dose, you can always use an isolate just to add more CBD into your regimen. So those are two ways or two reasons why you could use an isolate, and you can still see medicinal benefits or have symptom improvement by just using an isolate. But just know if you're using it to address a medical concern, if applicable, you might want to consider using a whole plant extraction. So what is the endocannabinoid system? We all have one. The ECS was isolated and described in 1992 by a team of scientists at Hebrew University by William Anthony Devane and Lumir Andri. The ECS system is the most important physiologic system. It is the largest regulatory system, and it is involved in establishing and maintaining human health. As you can see on the figure on the right-hand side, we have CB1 and CB2 receptors. CB1 receptors are mainly found in the nervous system and in the brain, and CB2 receptors are mostly found in the peripheral organs, especially immune cells. So CB1 and CB2 receptors can be found all throughout the body. They're prevalent amongst each other. So if you see in the brain, CB1 and CB2 receptors are found there. The liver is CB1 and CB2. Thyroid gland, just CB1. So there's all types of receptors in your body that are regulating and modulating themselves. Sometimes when we have, let's say, cannabinoid deficiencies where our bodies don't produce enough of its own endogenous cannabinoids, we might become inharmonious with our bodies, and that's maybe when some afflictions or ailments or symptoms start to arise, is because our bodies are not into homeostasis, in which that case you might want to be ingesting exogenous cannabinoids like CBD found in like a tincture or something like that. So if there's some imbalances happening inside your body, it may be likely due to a deficiency. But scientists have learned that the ECS plays a direct role in homeostasis, which of course means balance in the body, or that synergy that we were talking about, just to make sure that things keep running as they should. The endocannabinoid system is essential to life, and it regulates messages that affect how we relax, eat, sleep, forget, and protect. And that is a quote from Italian researcher Vincenzo De Marzo. Did you know that anything that has a spine has an endocannabinoid system, even like ones without one, like a slug? So that's really interesting to know, that our bodies are regulated and that cannabinoids are still important in our quality of life and the health and wellness of our bodies. So let's move into the first portion of our presentation, renew. So what does renew mean? rethinking your cannabinoid therapy plan. It's 2019, January. You might want to revisit what happened last year if you've been using cannabis. What's working, what's not. Let me change some things. Let me reach out to the care team and see if there's some improvements I can be making, especially if you haven't found your therapeutic dose. So when you're rethinking your cannabinoid therapy plan, you want to make sure that you're managing your expectations. Now, we do get a lot of questions like, when is this going to work? I've been using it for several days, maybe less than a week. I haven't noticed any improvement. CBD does work by accumulation in the body. So there is a lot of information out there about how CBD works. I'll be going a little bit more in detail with that further on in the presentation. But a great way to start and a great place to start is visiting that PDF in your client portal called Managing Expectations. That'll go over tips on how to choose your goals, tips on how you will measure those goals, and what does success look like for you and your loved one. Another thing that might help you when you're rethinking your cannabis plan is a written journal. You can purchase one on Amazon or maybe pick up just a regular journal from the Dollar Tree or something like that. You don't need anything super expensive, but you want to be able to identify cannabis-specific indicators. Like, what are you using? How much? You want to be tracking your daily intake, your symptom relief, your dosing, your timeline, and just open note-taking, just so you can explain, like, today I felt really crappy, but maybe tomorrow you might feel really good. So being able to see those differences and maybe how you're changing or not changing over the course of a couple of weeks or even over a couple of months, then you can physically see that you're making improvements, or there might still be some room for improvement in your therapy. Another way is to track your results using our ORR. So that's our observational research registry. You can participate in this registry for free. You do get your own registry ID, and if you're staying current and up to date with your research, you're also entered to win maybe monies off your product, $50 gift card towards Amazon. You can also be entered to win gifts and prizes from Realm of Caring as well. So there's many benefits, not only just the monetary and physical benefits, but also we're hoping to use the research that you're providing to us so we can start help to reschedule cannabis, or even get insurance companies to start paying for cannabinoid therapy as it is currently out of pocket. And we do have a financial assistance program called Realm Cares that is donation based, but it'd be even better if it was actually covered and you can get a prescription for it. So by participating in research, we're moving towards that, and all the information that you provide will be really helpful on that journey. There's also apps. So if you're more of like a technical person like I am, I'm always in my phone, you might want to download Relief as well as Strain Print. And those apps, you can track your progress, you can get 30-day reports and see what's working, what's not, what you're using, what your dosing is. The more you are thorough with your notes and your tracking, the more we're able to better assist you. Because if you don't know what your dosing is, or you're kind of guesstimating, then we're going to be trying to guesstimate too, because we don't know. So the more accurate you are with your dosing, with managing your symptoms, with notating everything that you're experiencing, the care team can assist you in individualizing your therapy plan, or maybe tweaking some things, or trying different administration methods if necessary. Reasonable expectations. So how long will this take anyway? Well, it could take a couple of weeks to a couple of months realistically. I have met people that responded well within a week. It could be for a multitude of medical conditions. I've met families, let's say their child has epilepsy, that have responded and haven't had seizures since starting Charlotte's Web or another product that we support. So it's very possible, but the realistic outlook here is that it could take a while, especially if you have a very chronic medical condition, you've had this condition for many years, usage of pharmaceutical medication and other factors or variables that might hinder how long it takes for you to see improvements or success in your therapy. But please allow up to 6 months before deciding that cannabinoid therapy isn't for you at all. So patience is key. It's not an overnight fix. Your dosing might require tweaking, and you also might need some lab work to see what's happening inside your body. Even more so, let's say if you're using pharmaceutical medication and there is a potential for drug interactions, you want to see what those levels are, and if you might need to alter those medication levels, which may prompt a weaning schedule if one of your goals is to reduce how much medication you're taking or eliminate some of the medication you're taking. Also, labs might be helpful, let's say, for cancer and seeing what that's looking like, or if you're noticing any differences in apoptosis, which is essentially cancer cell death. And of course, titrating up slowly. It's not something that you want to just go in full force. You really want to start off at a small amount and leave room for dose increases if it's necessary. It's very possible that you don't need a lot to respond, and we have met a lot of people that do microdose and respond to 5 to 10 milligrams of CBD daily. So keep in mind our dosing suggestions, and we'll be talking about dosing a little bit, are just suggestions, and you want to make sure that you're following up with your body and how cannabis makes you feel as an individual. Continuing reasonable expectations. What does success mean to you, and identifying what that means for you and your family. You want to look at symptom and condition improvement ratings, maybe working with the attending physician, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, or, they have those like happy faces, sad faces, frowny faces, whatever makes sense to you and how you can gauge symptom improvement. We are working on different ways and helping clients to gauge that as well. So there's a lot of variables that go into your therapy. Measurable labs, as I mentioned earlier, also in general. So even if, let's say, you don't see improvements in seizures, but you notice improvements in cognition, or you notice improvements in behavior. Even if you don't see improvements in one area and there's still improvements in another area, that means that there might be an opportunity to still find a therapeutic dose, and it's very possible that you do need to do a dose increase. So typically, if there's room for improvement, there's room to increase the dose. How will you measure your results? Through consistency. CBD is something that you want to take every day, at least 2 to 3 times per day. So consistency is key. It's not something that you take as needed. You can, but it may or may not work as well. So you want to also be objective and putting things into perspective. If you're monitoring and tracking seizures using a seizure tracker or any other online tools, maybe an Excel worksheet or something like that, or an online journal, or the apps that I mentioned. Good old-fashioned notebook is always great, as well as the RoC research registry, as I mentioned earlier. Rebooting and figuring out when you need to do a reboot. I'm really excited about this section. So in this section, we'll be talking about administration and dosing, how to find a therapeutic dose, CBD tolerance, ECS oversaturation, that's endocannabinoid oversaturation, and rebooting, and when and how to take a break, because sometimes that's necessary. So let's start off with administration and dosing. If you're in your client portal, you do have access to the pediatric and adult dosing guidelines and calculator, as well as the cancer dosing instructions or suggestions that we have as well. So if you have questions or concerns, feel free to look at those videos. Feel free to look at the calculators, and we're always able to double check, make sure that the dosing's right, or if you need to just ask some questions about dosing, we're more than happy to help. But feel free to use at least 2 to 4 hours before or after pharmaceutical medication. If you do know that there is a medication that interacts with the CYP4502C19 enzyme, you can ask your doctor if your medication interacts with that specific enzyme. You don't have to tell them that you're using CBD, but that way you can understand that if there is a potential for drug interactions, you might want to consider spacing 3 to 4 hours or longer, if possible, to reduce the likelihood of drug interactions. If you want to find out that enzyme or learn a little bit more about that, visit the Guide to CBD. That is a really great document that kind of goes over drug interactions and the enzyme that I mentioned. Like I said, you can ask your pharmacist or your attending physician about drug interactions and what that means for you. Frequent monitoring, and we're going to keep talking about monitoring and journaling because it's so important for you to understand what you're seeing, what dose, at what product, and how you're taking it, whether that's a sublingual or patch or something like that. If you're doing a combination of cannabinoids, THC, CBDA, CBN, if you're using a multitude of things, then you also want to be tracking that so you can find, okay, is it just CBD that I respond to? Is it a multitude of cannabinoids that I need in my therapy? Because if you're having these variables, you need to be attributing what's working and what's not. And then transitioning to a new bottle for sensitive clients. We are aware that sometimes if you get to the lower end of your product, you may or may not see changes in your therapy improvements, or you might have differences in symptoms. I would say more so when clients have seizures or some type of epilepsy. So we do have a dilution calculator. So if you are noticing that when you get to the end of your bottle that maybe seizures are increasing, it may be possible that we need to dilute that with a new product. So if you need to go a little bit more in detail, or you suspect that's happening, the care team will be more than happy to assist you with that information. But it is something that we are aware of, and we want other people to be aware of as well. But just kind of a general tip, you want to make sure that you're shaking your bottle if you're using oils every time to make sure that that product is being stirred up effectively. Otherwise, the product is just kind of settling at the bottom with all the plant material. So make sure to really shake that up every time. Based on our investigations and research, the mean amount, we're talking about a therapeutic dose here, is about 2 milligrams per kilogram, which is a wide range from our database amongst those with epilepsy. Could be anywhere between 7 milligrams to 600 milligrams. So when we say that cannabis therapy or cannabinoid therapy is individualized, we really mean that it's extremely individualized therapy, and you can fall within that range anywhere on there. So your tracking is, once again, it's going to be very important. So since there is a huge range of dosing, everyone has their own therapeutic amount. So even if you have the same medical condition, you weigh the same weight as someone else, you're using the same medication, you can have a completely different therapeutic dose. So be careful if you're, on Facebook groups or other type of support groups, that someone's experience may not be the same as your experience. So take a lot of that information as information and not necessarily something that you yourself needs to follow. You want to make sure that you're starting low and slow enough so you can gauge your therapy for yourself. Another thing is that CBD does work by accumulation and saturation in the system, where it's stored in the fatty tissue in the body, and it acts on specific cannabinoid receptors within the brain and body. So we all have different genetic and biochemical makeups and individual health issues that can take days and sometimes months to address. So once again, patience is key. If you haven't done so already on the lines of dosing and finding your therapeutic dose, the best way and the most concise way is to use a syringe. You can see this 1 milliliter oral syringe pictured on the right hand side of your screen. You can find one of those from your local medical supply store, your local pharmacy if you're looking for a syringe. But as far as dosing accuracy, this is probably the best way to dose. If you're using a dropper, let's say you're using an oil or a tincture, then you want to dose in individual drops and not necessarily dropper fulls. Because if you're dosing in 2 dropper fulls twice a day, that's a variance, and we don't know exactly how much CBD that is. So just be mindful of how you dose results in different cannabinoids that you're intaking each time. So finding a therapeutic dose for you as an individual or for a loved one as an individual. When first starting out on CBD, the average half-life, so the half-life is about how long it takes for half of the dose to metabolize in the body. For CBD, when you're first getting started, the half-life is about 9 hours. Over time, let's say for the next couple of weeks to a couple of months, that half-life can build up to 72 hours. So realistically, CBD will always be in your system at some level. Your goal and your objective is to continue to replenish the CBD in your body to the point where you're finding the relief that you're looking for. So if you're not seeing the relief that you're looking for, let's say it changes throughout the day, maybe instead of dosing twice a day, you dose 3 times a day, for example. So that could be a remedy to your issue. But because of the half-life of CBD and how it's stored in the body over time and how long it stays in the system over time, occasional short breaks and missed doses should not affect symptom relief in someone that's been using CBD for several weeks. If you do need to take a break, it's perfectly okay. It also means that if you wanted to ever stop taking CBD altogether, there's no dependencies or withdrawals or any type of weaning schedules involved. You can just stop taking CBD. It'll typically metabolize out of your body within 72 hours and maybe longer depending on your metabolism and how much you've been using. THC can stay in the body upwards of 30 days depending on how much you're using. So just FYI, even if the CBD has metabolized out of your system, you may still have some residual THC in your body as well. When we're looking at finding a therapeutic dose, to reiterate, we're talking about starting off at a low dose. Your low dose, you might start off, depending on what you're using it for, maybe let's say for this example, 25 milligrams. That's your starting dose. You'd stay at that dose for 3 to 4 weeks before considering an increase. Let's say you increase over the next 3 months to 75 milligrams. So typically suggest increasing by 25 milligrams every 3 to 4 weeks. So let's say month 3, man, that 75 milligrams is really working well for you. It's a medium dose. Peak effects happen at medium doses. So if you're managing your symptoms and you're feeling like your quality of life is improving and you're thriving, then that is your therapeutic dose, and you want to stay at the dose that's working for you. But let's say you increase to from 75 milligrams to 100 milligrams, and you're not feeling the same improvement as you were before at 75 milligrams, and you might find a worsening in symptom relief, or it's just not working, or your sleep might be a little different. I say sleep because CBD, one of the side effects is lethargy, so you might be a little bit more tired than usual, or your sleep schedule might be a little off. Then that may be an indication that you've passed your therapeutic dose. So if you're seeing diminishing results, you want to go back to the dose that was working for you before. So sometimes dosing increases are not always the answer. So if you're noticing that, man, the CBD dose before was really working for me, go back to that dose and stay at that dose maybe for another 2 to 3 weeks and see if that's really sustaining you. It really just comes with trial and error. There's really not a specific guideline or really a specific way for you to kind of gauge this without actually doing it. So the only way you're going to find out is if you just try it. And I know some of that can be a little scary, especially with something that's new. But we won't know until you actually just do it. And if you're questioning yourself throughout that, or you're not seeing the relief that you're looking for, then it might be needed that you need to tweak your dose. So to reiterate, we start off at a low dose, you increase until you find a therapeutic dose. If you continue increasing and you're starting to see a diminishing in improvements in quality of life and symptom improvement, you want to go back to the dose that's working, as you might have passed what's called your therapeutic dose. Speaking about therapeutic doses, let's talk about tolerance. So what if you're at that 75 milligrams for a good 6 months and that 75 milligrams isn't working anymore? What do you do? In order to answer that question, we first need to understand tolerance. What is tolerance? Tolerance is the reduced reaction to a substance after repeated use. That can be on a cellular level, a metabolic level, as well as a behavioral level. CBD doses vary from person to person, as you know, and some report that their dose is less effective over time, and some people report that the same dose helps them to achieve symptom relief over time. And I've met many people that have been at their same dose for years and are still seeing symptom improvement and still sustaining their quality of life. And there's some people that may need to adjust their dosing. So you may fall into either one of those categories. Tolerance is very different than addiction or dependence, and there are several clinical trials reporting that CBD was unobserved, but anecdotal reports indicate that individuals noticing tolerance with their daily dosing. So I'm going to read that one more time. Several clinical trials report that CBD trials were unobserved, but anecdotal reports indicate individuals noticing tolerance with their daily dosing. Cannabis tolerance in general is the human brain's adaptation to the constant presence of cannabinoids, in which higher doses of marijuana or cannabis are needed to obtain the effect of the first dose. Tolerance builds up with many substances and not just with cannabis. Caffeine is one of them. Tolerance can happen because of a neurological phenomenon called downregulation, and I'll talk about downregulation in the next couple of slides. But as you expose your system to one substance over time, the number of receptors in the brain that react to that particular substance reduces over time. So because your body is striving to maintain balance and prevent overload. And we'll be talking about oversaturation a little bit, because sometimes you can actually overload your system with CBD, and to the point where you're actually not utilizing the CBD any longer because your body can't hold anymore. But as soon as this process starts, and when I mean this process, I'm talking about tolerance, you may need more of that substance to achieve the same effects. So instead of maybe increasing, you might want to decrease your dose. And there's some ways we can talk about that and go a little bit more in detail about it, but a care specialist will be able to assist you on a one-to-one basis if you're needing more individualized support. So just keep that in mind. This is just a broad overview on some things you might want to consider. Rebooting and taking a break. So we were talking about tolerance and rebooting and downregulation. What does that mean? So CB1 receptors start to downregulate the reception of CBD when it's used frequently and when it's used often. So your body is not utilizing that CBD and the THC the same way that it once was before. So your body is downregulating the use of that specific compound in your body. The accumulation in your body, so you want to turn down the dial, reboot, or take a break. So if you are noticing that you're experiencing a tolerance or it's not working the same way that it once was before, then you might want to stop taking CBD maybe for 48 to 72 hours. Or maybe just do a 24-hour fast and resume at your dose. You can also decrease your dose by, like, let's say 12.5 milligrams if you're a medically sensitive adult, or just following our dosing suggestions. So you can also decrease your dosing as well. So there's many different ways that you can reboot. Typically, it can be effective in as little as 2 to 3 days of no cannabis use, but a longer break does produce more noticeable results. Alternatively, it could also mean just mixing up your administration methods. It could be maybe changing from sublingual to vaping, or from vaping to creams, or adding creams into your regimen. Let's say you have arthritis or pain and you're just using a dosing regimen that consists of oils. Then maybe consider adding a topical if you're still having breakthrough pain and inflammation. So there's many different ways that you can go about just stopping, assessing your current situation, and then maybe just restarting or adding a different product into your regimen. But we do have some research. You can find this research in our research library. This one is on rapid changes in CB1 receptor availability in cannabis-dependent males after abstinence from cannabis. So there's really it's not a bad thing to just stop and restart. Even with cannabis smokers, let's say not just necessarily CBD, but if you're smoking cannabis or using a form of vaporization, you may or may not be using it to the point where it's getting you high anymore. You could be a really chronic heavy smoker and you're still smoking the same amount, but nothing's happening. You may want to take a tolerance break and do a reboot as well. So there's many different ways in cannabis in general that tolerance can happen, and just stopping can also remedy the issue. So what is oversaturation? What is oversaturation in the body? Oversaturation occurs when the endocannabinoid system, or ECS, is exposed to too many cannabinoids at one time. So this might occur when the user is taking very high doses or increasing their dosing too quickly. Now, high dosing is very subjective. For example, for cancer clients, we suggest starting with 100 milligrams of CBD daily and increasing as quickly and as often as they can tolerate. And when we say tolerate, it's because the more CBD you're ingesting, also the more THC you're ingesting. So that's kind of subjective. So be mindful of what that means for you. If you know that you're a very sensitive person, consider doing that microdosing and starting off at a very low dose and building yourself up as needed. That way you can kind of gauge how you respond. And if you know that you're the type of person where pharmaceutical medications, you respond very sensitively to it, then you want to start low. If you know that, let's say you are using medication or have in the past and you need higher doses, that may be true also for CBD. But oversaturation in general may be present with increased seizure activity, increased lethargy or tiredness, an increase in CBD and or medication side effects. So being mindful of your medication side effects, one, is very helpful. Being mindful of CBD side effects is very helpful, because CBD side effects that we are aware of is increases in lethargy or tiredness, as I mentioned, but as well as an increase or decrease in your appetite. So you may or may not see changes in your eating habits. Any type of nausea, upset stomach, diarrhea. We have had reports of that, but that's typically not necessarily attributed to the CBD. is about how much carrier oil that you're ingesting in a day. So if you're taking, let's say, 6 milliliters of oil a day and you're experiencing nausea, vomiting, upset stomach, or just GI distress, it very well could just be the amount of CBD that you're taking, the carrier oil that you're ingesting. So there's many different things that play into that. So I just want you to be aware of CBD side effects, your medication side effects, and possibly oversaturation side effects. But if oversaturation does occur and you are experiencing symptoms or side effects, regardless of what that might look like, if it's concerning, it's a side effect, and you need to be mindful of that, you might want to consider skipping a couple of doses to allow some of those cannabinoids that's already stored in your system to metabolize out of your body. This process of resetting your endocannabinoid system is called rebooting. So I've got a handy dandy little illustration here. So when you're thinking about saturation, think of it as like a wet sponge. So you see this first sponge here, it's not saturated, it could hold a little more, maybe try and still find your therapeutic dose. When you get there, you're increasing, and wow, you're pretty saturated, and you're seeing some improvements in your quality of life, and you're thriving, and you're seeing all the hopes and dreams and wishes that you could acquire. Then you keep increasing your dosing, and then you see, oh, beyond saturation, your body just can't utilize that much CBD, and you're doing worse than you are doing better. Then we might want to consider decreasing your dosing or doing a reboot or a fast, if you will, of cannabis. So when you're thinking about oversaturation, think of it in these terms or in this analogy that can really give you a helpful gauge on what you're experiencing. Restarting. So once you've done that reboot, how do you restart your cannabinoid therapy? So before we start, let's talk about when do you take a break. So finding the right balance. When you have a worsening of symptoms, when you have an improvement in symptoms, is your dose too high? If so, you might want to lower your dose or titrate low and slow, or you're using cannabis more than 6 months. So when you're considering a reboot, consider these criteria before you engage in that. So the whole goal here is to find the right balance. If you've been using cannabis more than 6 months and you're still seeing improvements in your therapy, just FYI, it's very possible that we can start to decrease your dosing, maybe just increasing by 12 milligrams or even 5 milligrams if you want to just go really low and slow. But that way you can see, okay, if I'm decreasing by 5 milligrams, maybe, once a week or once every other week, am I still seeing the same symptom improvement by decreasing my dose? And if you are, then you know that you're moving in the right direction and you don't need as much cannabinoids as you once did before. It's also very possible that your body has regulated itself and you're making your own endogenous cannabinoids, and you don't need as much exogenous CBD to regulate your system any longer, which is a great thing. So before I move on, I just wanted to recap when you would take a break when you're seeing a worsening in symptoms, improvement in symptoms, if your dosing is too high, and if you're needing to see, if your dosing is too high, the care team will be able to help you figure that out, and if you're using cannabis more than 6 months. If you want to do a reboot, consider stopping cannabis or CBD maybe for 24 to 72 hours, maybe 1 to 3 days to see how your body's responding or how your loved one's body's responding to that dose decrease. You can also decrease your dose at that time as well, and just kind of microdose yourself backwards. So if you're not seeing the improvements that you want to see, very possible that you want to decrease your dose. It's also very possible that you need to increase your dose as well. By taking that reboot, you can see which way you need to go in your therapy. Do I need to do a decrease or do I need to do an increase? If I do a decrease and I see improvements, I'm moving in the right direction. If I do an increase and I'm seeing a betterment in my improvements, then you're going in the right direction, and you're using that to the best of your ability with gauging how you're responding to that trial. So all of that is just trial and error. As I mentioned, you won't know until you try it, and I know that can be very daunting. But trying either way, decreasing or increasing, will let you know which way you need to move in your therapy. But not only just doing reboots and figuring out your dosing and your symptoms, but also the quality of your product matters. So if you're not seeing improvements, in your therapy, it's very well possible that you might want to try a different extraction method or a different administration method, or also just verifying that your product actually contains what it says it contains and has been tested properly as well. There's information on labeling accuracy of cannabinoid products sold online. It's a published letter in JAMA, JAMA, by some of these researchers listed on the screen here. But just a synopsis of that finding, that among CBD products purchased online, 26% of those products contain less CBD than labeled, which can negate any potential clinical response. Mislabeling suggests that there's potentially continued need for federal and state regulatory agencies to take steps to ensure label accuracy of these consumer products. These findings highlight the need for manufacturing and testing standards, as well as oversight in medical cannabis products. The study did not name products, but we can assure you that the quality products that we support meet a strict criteria and use third-party testing and follow guidelines from the American Herbal Products Association and the current good manufacturing practices labs. So all the products that we support have gone through strenuous and rigorous processes from us when we're vetting product lines, as well as our own third-party testing as well. And if you're wanting a batch report, these product lines are very transparent, so you can see what these products contain and what they've been tested for, like mold, pesticide, and residual. So if you're not seeing improvements in your dosing, and you've tried all different types of combinations, and you've moved increase and you've decreased, then the next thing would be to look at your product and making sure that it's the right fit for what you're using it for. Not only the quality, but also the concentrations as well. You can use this handy dandy quality of product matter sheet found on our website. You can print this out or even pull it up on your phone if you're vetting quality products. But the only way to prove efficacy is to measure and repeat with consistent products. The fact is that cannabis is safe. It's actually very safe. But proper labeling and testing and the lack thereof can cause inadvertent effects. Once again, the American Herbal Products Association guidelines, the current good manufacturing practice labs, and of course, self-regulation. It is your right as a consumer to have access to what's called certificates of analysis, which is called a batch report. You can always reach out to those companies directly that you're interested in and request this and make sure that they can answer these questions, like what the product, where was it grown? Is it certified hemp and by whom? Is it grown naturally using organic processes? Can you track the production, seed to sale, and to delivery? So I know these things, as a consumer, like, well, I really just want to figure out what product I need to take and just take it. But it's very important that you do your own research and your own homework before investing in a product for your health and wellness. Because if you're using a tainted product, then none of this is going to matter. Questions so far? Okay, fantastic. Now let's talk about how we use this in your everyday life. Let's starting off with something brand new. Like I said, it's 2019. If you're looking to take a look at your current products and how you're using them and administration methods, now is the time. It's a really great opportunity for you to vet product lines if you haven't done so, just to make sure that, hey, I am using something quality. Great, let's go ahead and do that. But if you're needing some suggestions, we have a couple for you. So these are the current product lines that we support. Caniatric is not on here, but Elixinol, Mary's Nutritionals, the Stanley Brothers, as well as CW Hemp. These product lines have both CBD and THC products, depending on where you're purchasing from. Elixinol is CBD. It's going to be hemp-derived products, CBD-derived products. They have capsules. They've got liposome products, which is nanotechnology. How cool is that? They have topicals and vape products and oils. So there's different administration methods for different people that appeal in their product line. Mary's Nutritionals, they are a fantastic topical product. They have topical compounds as well as transdermal compounds as well, and I'll talk a little bit more about the differences between the two. But Mary's provides really cool and innovative ways to achieve cannabinoid therapy. results by providing patches and other unconventional ways that you'd typically ingest cannabinoids. The Stanley Brothers is a derivative of the Stanley Brothers from Charlotte's Web. So this is their product company. It's kind of like a bridge or a tree that they have multiple product lines under. But Charlotte's Web is their hemp-derived CBD products. You can purchase that at cwhemp.com. So you don't need a medical card for Mary's Nutritionals, Elixinol, or CW, just FYI. And then the Stanley Brothers is only found here in Colorado, and that is made by the Stanley Brothers, makers of CW Hemp. And they have cartridges, like vape pens, and they have tinctures and all types of ways that you can ingest cannabinoids, mainly like THC dominant, indica sativa, hybrid, etc. Briefly going over administration methods, most clients are using sublingual methods. Sublingual is just under the tongue dosing, typically in the form of an oil. But there's many different ways that you can dose using a multitude of capsules and topicals and patches. You can mix and match your therapy. So if you're wanting to try other products, please go for it. Just make sure to document what you're using, how much, the time of day, anything that will be insightful for you. That way, if you do find a combination that works, you can replicate it. But sublingual, as I mentioned, is typically oils under the tongue. Capsules can be found in powdered forms or in oral forms, but typically capsules are just capsules, being aware that hemp extract content is not the same as CBD content. And that really goes for anything that has any type of hemp extract on it. So I want you to be aware of that. Like, for example, Charlotte's Web has hemp extract on their product. So it says, 25 milligrams or 30 milligrams, but out of that 30 milligrams, 18 milligrams is CBD. The rest is going to be terpenes, flavonoids, and all the other naturally occurring compounds that's in the plant. So if you're seeing that on your product, just be aware that you need to further clarify, okay, there's hemp extract content, but what is the CBD out of the hemp extract? Because that is what you're dosing by. So that just came up. Sorry for going on a tangent there, but I know that's a question that we get a lot here at Realm of Caring. Transdermal vs topicals. They're both applications that you apply onto the skin, but I want you to be aware that transdermal is systemic. So it not only stays on that one spot, but it travels throughout your body. So if you put, let's say, you sprained your ankle and you put a transdermal product, which is maybe in the form of a cream, on your ankle, then it's not just going on your ankle, it's going to be going all throughout your body, to your brain, to your arms, all throughout your limbs. So it doesn't just stay in one place. When you're using topical products, it's just staying on that area and it's not traveling throughout your body. So if you're wanting whole body systemic relief, you might want to consider using a transdermal product over a topical product. Being aware that transdermal products are a little bit more costly in the grand scheme of things versus topical products, it's mainly because of the type of technology that it's used to create transdermal products. So don't be frightened by the price. I want you to know that it's a very effective way of delivering cannabinoids into your system. It's something that you might want to try, especially if you have localized pain, inflammation, or you want systemic relief, or just something to add to your regimen. Another way is vaporization. That could be in the form of a vape pen or just vaping cannabis flower, but mainly in the form of, just vaping. Most people, if you see those big mods and everybody are doing those big old explosions of smoke, that is vaping. So you could try that as well. It is a lot quicker as far as onset is concerned. You can see results within seconds to minutes. So as far as how it's delivered into your body, it's a lot quicker than, let's say, sublingual dosing, which could take 60 to 90 minutes to metabolize in your body. So if you take it, you're going to be waiting a little bit for it to kick in. So that's just something to know. Rectal dosing, as uncomfortable as that may be, or it's a topic of conversation, it is also very effective because it is bypassing a lot of things that have to do with your liver and how it's metabolized in your body. So your body is able to actually utilize the CBD or cannabis products a lot more effectively because it's going directly into one of the largest membranes in your body. And so you're able to actually disperse that and use that a lot more effectively versus swallowing it, let's say, and you could lose some potency and all types of things when you're going through first pass metabolism. So there is a time and place for rectal dosing, especially if, let's say, cancer is involved, prostate cancer, ovarian cancer, all types of things. So we want to dose as close to the source as possible. Could be endometriosis, for example. So weigh your options and see, if something like this is something you want to explore. Most people, just on the topic of rectal or vaginal dosing, you want to maybe consider doing that at nighttime. You don't have any obligations and you're not in public, because it can be a messy process, in all honesty. So you maybe consider doing a oral or sublingual administration during the day, and then doing another administration at night, rectal or vaginal. So that is an opportunity to try and see if you do notice any differences with your administration. Another administration method is G-tubes or J-tubes, Mickey buttons. Our clients that are using this as a form of nutrition can still use cannabis products. They may want to consider using a natural oil with no flavorings, as flavorings may degrade the plastic. Also, oils and waters don't mix. So if you are using an oil, you want to make sure to use the oil first, then flush it with food, or you can mix the oil with the food and then flush with water. So that's how you would utilize CBD when it comes to G-tubes or J-tubes. But please feel free to try all different types of things, mix and match, try oils and capsules and topical products, because you might respond differently one administration method over the other, or a combination of products may work best for you. And if you have questions about products and dosing suggestions on these products, the care team is more than happy to answer those questions for you. At the end of the day, it's important that you communicate with your physician. A lot of this can be a little overwhelming, dealing with this by yourself, and we are not pharmacists or physicians of any sort, so we're not able to assist you with lab work or any of the intricacies of your therapy or changing of medications. So it's important that you're communicating and maybe have an open line of communication with your healthcare practitioner, what you're doing and what your goals are when using cannabinoid therapies. We're finding that more and more physicians are extremely open to their patients using cannabis, even though they're not able to directly assist. They're all on board and willing to support their client. So if you do have a physician that's on board and willing to support you, wonderful, fantastic. We're always able to collaborate with that physician if they have questions or concerns. We also have a practitioner portal where practitioners can also have the same resources and access to information as you do. So if your physician's on board or would like more information, they can create their own client account or practitioner account as well. If you're looking for a physician, or you're just trying to see if there's a holistic practitioner in your area, you can go at the top of our homepage. You'll see practitioners, and then under practitioners, you'll find a healthcare provider or doctor. Most of these are going to be holistic practitioners, so not a lot of DOs or MDs, but you may find some luck in your area if you're looking for maybe a second opinion or just additional support. We do have current research initiatives. We're enrolling in 5 different studies, and we're always expanding our research. We do have an institute as well called RoC. But our biggest is our observational research registry, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. It's an institutional review board approved, so it's IRB approved. It's in collaboration with Johns Hopkins University, the University of Pennsylvania, VA Palo Alto, and others. It was launched in 2016 and is still active to this day, and it is open to anyone with any condition, whether you're using cannabis or not, because we want 2 different groups and control group as well. And to consider that we're a small nonprofit, this is the largest cannabis observational study in the United States. So that is something that's really impressive that we like to talk about a lot here. And we just encourage you to join if you haven't done so already. There's a lot of valuable information that we can obtain from just monitoring and following you and tracking you on your journey to wellness. We have other research initiatives and projects as well. Metabolite study is essentially just a pee study. We're just monitoring if you're just using hemp products, what's the likelihood of you testing positive for THC. We have a current NFL player study, a former professional athlete study, which is just monitoring CTE and traumatic brain injury, adult epilepsy study, and PTSD study at Harvard. If you're interested in these projects and wanting to learn a little bit more about that, you can visit our website, theroc.us, reboot.org/participate. And you'll find all of our studies and how to participate there. You can find additional research resources if you're a research bug or you just like to learn a little bit more and add to your repertoire. You can visit our research library at theroc.us/research-library. We have listed here the International Research cannabis-med.org, as well as the domestic research, and that is government ran, and that's pubmed.gov, and that has a lot more in detail research, and a lot of it's clinical, some of it's not, still doing mice studies and animal studies, and hopefully we'll start to see a lot more clinical trials, at least here in the United States when it comes to cannabis. So I think we're moving in that direction, but there's lots of research out there. So to say that there's nothing to suggest that cannabis is therapeutic, I think it's time to kind of revisit that notion. So please let us know if you have any questions on the research or just looking for specific articles. We're more than happy to help you in that process. So let's talk a little bit about RoC Friends. So Realm of Caring, as you know, we're a nonprofit organization. If you love who we are, what we do, you can contribute to us monthly. There's different levels that you can contribute to, upwards from as little as $1 a month to $50 a month, or whatever your heart desires. There's a lot of different ways that you can get engaged and different perks for joining at different levels. If you're interested in joining RoC and being a part of our Friends and Family program, you can always visit theroc.us/friends for more information. We're more than happy to walk you through that process and elaborate a little bit more on that program if you're interested. If you like to volunteer, we're always looking for volunteers to join us and to assist us with our initiatives and community engagement. You don't have to live in Colorado to join. We do have remote volunteer opportunities. So volunteers have always played an important role in our organization. Most of our staff has started off as volunteers. So it really does make a lot of the things that we do a huge difference in just the help of our community members. So if you're wanting to volunteer with Realm of Caring or learn a little bit more on how you can get involved with who we are and what we do, visit our website, theroc.us/volunteer for more opportunities. There's also intern opportunities as well if you're wanting to look into internships at theroc.us/interns. And briefly, just wanted to talk about the hemp bill. As you know, there's a lot of revision going on there. The Farm Bill was signed into effect on December 20th, 2018. Just FYI, products derived from hemp can be grown across the U.S. Hemp has been removed from its long-held status as Schedule I drug under the Controlled Substances Act. New Frontier data projects that this legalization could triple the market to $2 billion by 2022. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, issued a statement indicating that it could crack down on products containing cannabis and cannabis-derived products and compounds like hemp. The FDA reserves the right to regulate products containing cannabis and will take action against businesses making claims about therapeutic potential of CBD products that haven't been approved. We're not necessarily bound by, making claims or anything like that. We don't necessarily make claims, that we look towards the research and what research suggests. And research is suggesting that cannabis is saving lives and is helping people improve their quality of life. So we just want to kind of update you on what that new bill has looked like and the revision of that. If you're looking for more information, you can search at the top right-hand corner of our website, theroc.us. You can just search "What the Hemp," and that'll bring up some of the legalities there and further detail of these bills, as well as the Omnibus Act and what that entails, so you can be aware of your rights and legalities. So wrapping it up today, what have we covered? We talked about research and resources, cannabinoids briefly, CBD and THC, CBD from hemp versus CBD from medical cannabis or marijuana, the endocannabinoid system, rethinking your cannabinoid therapy plan and tools and strategies to re-engage in your therapy, managing results and how to set expectations as well as following up with those expectations, what is tolerance, rebooting and how to start again, how to titrate, increase or decrease your dose, obtaining and being able to identify quality products, how to change brands, how to talk with your healthcare provider, and how to donate and volunteer. And what are your next steps from here? So you've got all this information. What do you do with it now? You can put it into practice. You can contact the care team, give us a call, you can give us some feedback on maybe some other topics that you'd like to talk about, or even on the discussion that we talked about today. And then you can also register for our next session, Tuesday, January 29th, and we'll be talking about seasonal affective disorder. The acronym is SAD. And we find that that's very timely for this time of year when it comes to depression, anxiety, and other behavioral and mood disorders. So thank you so much for joining us today. If you have further questions or concerns, once again, please direct them to the care team. Our number is 719-347-5400, option 1. You can also email us at info@theroc.us. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.